15 after right now. I'm going to give it another minute just because people are really slow at these things. And then we'll get started. So, oh, and I cleaned out my childhood bedroom last Sunday, and I found Star Wars flip books. So there'll be some opportunity to like engage or share, I guess, if you choose, and I'll give you a flip book. Isn't it? I ain't got time for eBay. Oh man, these are so great. 3 people are going to leave this room really excited today.
You're one of them?
No, I have Star Wars flip books. It's been brought in. All right, I'm going to get started. So for a topic like this, it could really easily be really boring and overwhelming. So I'm counteracting that in GIF form. I've spent too many hours yesterday giggling to animated GIFs on the internet. So you all get to enjoy them too. So I'm going to put these Star Wars flip books in my pocket. I just want you guys to know I have them. I'll be giving them to people who contribute. So you got a little incentive. You can have a little nostalgic flashback. I think they're from the 90s, but I'm not completely sure. I found them in a drawer in my old bedroom. So first things first, don't be a stranger. There will be opportunity to kind of engage through this. So don't feel like you have to like be in the back hiding and kind of wishfully looking through a plate of glass. Oh, Russell. But yeah, the topic here is burnout and depression. This is a real issue in the tech world for a number of reasons. I'm not really going to go into the reasons, but I think part of it is that a lot of us get into it because we're bored, lonely, and we're like, I have a computer. This is neat. I can make things. And so I think it kind of predisposes us to a certain degree to characteristics that are often in the realm of the depression side of things. And then burnout. We work crazy hours. A lot of us are in startups. I run a startup. Burnout is unfortunately just a cycle for me of something I experience. I'm in the phase of it right now. It's pretty great. And so we all deal with this on some level. We have coworkers or friends that deal with this. And so why not talk about it instead of not talk about it? There's Mr. Feeney with a Nerf gun. So get ready to receive some knowledge. And so I'm going to state some obvious things up front just to get them out into the open. The first thing is you're not alone. A lot of people struggle with this stuff. Every single person in this room, show of hands, and you don't get flip books for this, but how many of you have ever been burnt out? Yeah, see? I'm not going to do the hand thing for the depression part. I don't want to call you out if you're not comfortable with that. But so now let's be cathartic or catharsis-y. I can't spell, which is really a problem when you're writing code and it's very particular. And you're like, yeah, I wrote the function number format. Why is it not working? It's like, oh, I spelled format wrong. It just happens. All right, so why I'm passionate about talking about burnout and depression. I don't know that I'm that passionate about it. But at the end of the day, I think if we can embrace and understand better what burnout and depression do and the effects they have, it allows us to really change the world from where we are. And I think there's kind of this myth that you have to get to a certain point to be able to kind of have that impact, and I don't believe that. And I like to think I'm living proof of the fact that that's not true. People may or may not agree with that statement, but yeah, I think that's what I love about it, and I'm here to hopefully encourage you to realize that from where you are right now, you can have meaningful impact locally, globally, interspecies, I guess. I don't know, maybe you help dogs or something. I don't know. So disclaimer up front, I am not a licensed therapist, psychologist, or analyst. I have counseled many individuals and families and couples at different stages of life. If you do want to talk to somebody, let me know. I have tons of friends that are in the psychology world. I like to geek out with them and hear about what their lives are like because it's very interesting to me. But that's not what I do. I'm a software engineer and tech founder and all that good stuff. And here's a helpful quote as we get started off. You're forgetting that as a psychiatrist, I was a professional twice over, an analyst and a therapist, the world's first analrapist. Analrapist. Yeah, there we go. I knew I was going to screw that up. I practiced it like 10 times last night. My wife's just like, it's not going to go well. So it's Arrested Development if you haven't seen the show. So who am I? Yeah, I gift myself. I own 4 shirts, 1 vest, and 3 pairs of pants. So the likelihood of the combos matching up is just, it's gonna happen. I apologize. That's actually really funny. I have a tie on there too. I'm like better dressed, hanging out, writing code for myself. And very surprised. So I'm the founder of a company called Yeah, I founded Midwest Gear, that's right. That was my first company. I had an exit back in 2005-ish. And then I recently founded Fresh Fine. I've been doing that. Finally get to pay my own bills with my company. It's like magic. I feel like I'm cheating the world because I'm not doing contract work anymore. So we bootstrapped that. My undergrad, I got a degree called Service Management, which is a business psych degree, and a fine art minor, and then I have a master's of divinity. And the only reason I throw that in there is you'd be surprised how much ethics and counseling and pastoral care and all of that goes into professional training to be a minister. I've worked with, and some of this was in the description thing on the session thing, but everything from pre-marriage counseling to relationship counseling to working with homeless men in particular in St. Paul, to hospice type situations. It's really, it's life, and I love getting to be a part of that when I get to. I'm proud to be part Dutch, even though I'm more German. And I had brats last night, so I'm like a happy man right now. I'm a full stack engineer for 15-ish years, and I also do businessy stuff because you have to when you run a company. So we're going to start off with what words mean, just so that we're all kind of like using similar language as we have this conversation. And then we'll talk about how we use them. So the first, oh yeah, you keep using that word. Princess Pride. So first word, burnout. We all raised our hand that we had experienced this. So this is the definition we're using. I'm assuming that you all still will probably put your hand up if I were to ask again. Physical or mental collapse caused by overwork or stress. I think for most of us, it's probably the overwork part, although the stress definitely does not help. It's just something that happens, especially when you've got deadlines and you're pushing and you're like, I need to pay my bills. So burnout, basically the way I like to describe it is just not feeling able to process or deal with the tasks that are in front of you. And Moss is my favorite. That's a little confession. And so, so burnout in me, this happens several times a year. I alluded to this earlier. There's this cycle where I push really, really hard to get stuff done, and then all of a sudden I just like can't function. It's awesome when that happens after I finish the tasks. That's not always the case. This happens more for me during the winter and spring than summer and fall for some reason, which is weird. I love winter. It's my favorite season, so I don't quite get what that's all about. And I have a very hard time letting myself relax and recharge. I know that's part of why I burn out on such a regular basis. And for me, often this looks like me staring at the computer screen, not doing anything, or compulsively checking Slack, Twitter, Reddit, whatever other things have new content that I haven't seen from the last 5 minutes. And I apologize to all of you that I bug on Slack when I get burned out, because it's pretty outrageous. And depression. So depression is a mood disorder causing persistent feelings of sadness and loss of interest, which I think defines Grumpy Cat pretty well. And so, so here's kind of a Paul version of the description. This leads to the non-sexy version of staying in bed all day, and or the loss of enjoyment and things that you normally would enjoy. Yeah, so sorry, the beginning of this is a fair amount of me kind of sharing, but I think you guys kind of expected that coming in here. So this is where I get to share a little bit about me. This is more, yeah, my background. So I attempted suicide the first time when I was 16. I think that put me in freshman year of high school. I was smart, so they let me do that or something. I don't know. Don't think about the age in the school year. And it was really messed up because my life wasn't on paper really horrible. I had good friends, I had a girlfriend, like I was doing good in school. I'd actually started my first company already, although it wasn't like completely formalized yet. And so I did what any introverted analytical person did and was like, something's messed up. So I changed everything overnight. I broke up with my girlfriend, switched peer groups. I've been playing the violin for 8 years and gave that up and went into art. Like I basically was like, how can I change everything? Because something's really messing me up. It almost killed me. And yeah, let's see what the next slide is. So I really tried hard to fix myself, figuring that that was the issue. And so, and it seemed like it worked. The next couple of years went along pretty swimmingly. Things kept progressing with the startup. School was going fine, and like I was fortunate. I was at a really large high school, so it was easy enough to kind of jump into a new peer group. A graduating class is like 800 some, and so it was really easy to be like, ha ha ha. Here's a new group of 20 people that I did not hang out with previously. And then suicide attempt number 2 happened the end of my junior year. And that was more of a wake-up call than the first one, because I assumed the first time around that there was some like thorn in my side, and if I just like changed everything, it would be gone, and I would have dealt with the issue. And that forced me to realize that that's actually not what was happening, because pretty much everything that I could change had changed at that point. And I want to point out, this is not situational. Feeling sad is absolutely normal. Having rough patches is absolutely normal. That's not depression. So to kind of put this in perspective, at this point, I'm 18 years old. I'm a sponsored event producer with Red Bull North America. I have a number of other sponsors. I'm writing for international publications. And this is junior year of high school. Like, this is where my startup had gotten to. I'm producing events that people are flying in from all over the country to attend. I had an online social platform. This is now like 2002, where people are getting to know each other, encouraging one another, doing freestyle ski stuff. It was a lot of fun. I was winning events that I wasn't running, because you can't win your own events. There's like, people question if it, I don't know, you didn't look as good as that other guy, but you run the thing, so. So there's a difference between situations that may cause you to despair or feel depressed or distraught, and what would be clinically depressed. And that's like, there's chemical junk going on and all of that. And so, and both, if you're just in a rough patch, I mean, my dad passed away like 3-4 years ago from Lou Gehrig's disease. I get that situational stuff. Depression's different. And so just for those of you who may not have experienced it yourself, like, just understand that there is a distinction between the two. This time I was like, yeah, I can't change everything again, because that didn't work. So I started talking to people. It actually took me 2.5 days to convince my parents I'd attempted suicide twice, because they just couldn't believe it. And then they're finally like, oh, you did do this. Okay, like, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, I want to get some meds and I want to talk to someone. And they're like, okay. So that was interesting. Okay, so I have kind of a weird sense of humor, if you haven't figured that out already. One of the best parts of going to therapy was going to the Park Nicollet Clinic in St. Louis Park off Highway 100, getting in the elevator, and they have like what's on each floor next to the buttons. And so you have like some lady who's there for like gout or I don't know, and she's going up to like the fourth floor, and like the third floor is mental health, and that's all it says next to the button. And so I get in the, and at this point I actually had my license suspended by the state of Minnesota for like a little speeding issue I had going in triple digits. And so my mom had to take me, and so I get in the elevator and I hit the button, and then I just kind of like back up to the corner and smile at people. Oh my gosh, it was so great. And like just the uncomfortable poses it would put people in, who they're just like, I'm just here for a follow-up appointment. What is he thinking? Like they couldn't figure it out. My mom's like, stop it, which I think just added to it, even though like it made her oh, it was just fantastic. And so, but through that process, it helped me realize that, wow, there's a lot of stuff I didn't know about myself, and there's a lot of stuff I didn't know about being able to identify what's happening and being able to cope well. My kind of last real bad suicidal episode happened at 20, where I just had to shut the world out for a while and process and deal with whatever. And I was in college at the time and had a couple friends that I don't think they knew it was going on, but I don't know, it's just small, meaningful things that were really nice that happened. That kind of helped, and I've been doing a lot better on the awareness and coping part that we'll talk about in a minute. And so I've had a decade since that last really rough spot dealing with it. Depression, in my opinion, is not something that you cure. It's not something you get over. I think that's one of the big misconceptions that people who don't have depression think. They think of it as any other disease. If I get cancer, I go in for treatment, I go into remission, and I'm better. Depression is something that just kind of sticks with you, and it comes with you everywhere you go, and it's just a matter of being able to be aware of it and have coping techniques to manage it better so that it doesn't control you as much. So after that, we've got a quick cat break. Mainly because I kind of had a feeling after I'm like, so I tried to keep myself twice, and I made funny jokes in elevators and got my driver's license taken away by a judge who asked if I had a death wish, and I was like, kinda, but I didn't say that to him. I said, no, sir, because what do you do? If I would have said yes, I probably would have been like institutionalized right there in juvie court. Okay. So that's what words mean. And so now we're going to move on. This is going to be the slightly more interactive part. So are you excited yet? And if you haven't seen The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt yet, oh my gosh, it's so good. It's so good. And that gift just gets me because she's so like excited and horrified all at once. It's pretty good. And so here's another quote. Just as the mighty gift has come back to transform the world, so shall you also, Sir David Attenborough. I made that one up. So let's work on two key tools. So my goal here today is to go through these two pieces of the puzzle. Obviously, if this is something you're actively struggling with, I would encourage you to get more professional help than I'm able to provide, and they'll help kind of hone in on these things for you and kind of like give you a more personalized approach to this, I guess, that will help you out. So the first one is awareness. This is the one I think we talk about the least, both in the mental health field as well as just people in general. We love talking about coping. We don't like talking about the awareness piece. And I think it's because the awareness piece is a lot more difficult. And so I have two kind of mini definitions here. Awareness is the process of helping us anticipate low points so that we can start coping earlier and that we can get feelings of control and empowerment for what's going on in our lives. And then coping are the things we do to help mitigate those low points so that we can make them shorter, shallower, and bring us back to kind of being ourselves, to being normal, whatever that is for you. So, getting started, awareness. You don't know, that's the Friends episode where he's talking about unagi and always being aware and ready. Um, so to get started here, we're going to take some time to hone this skill. It's going to take you a long time. It's taken me a long time because it takes a lot of kind of self-awareness and attention to how you're experiencing in your life, I guess is one way to put it. It's very difficult to start paying attention to that, especially if you've never done that before, because a lot of what you're going to see you're not really going to appreciate at first. And that's totally fine. But doing this well is going to help you from kind of hitting the really low points because you're going to be able to be more proactive with the things that you're going through. So there's kind of two pieces here. The first one's knowing normal, and the second one's mismatched emotions. So I keep misplacing the remote. We'll go on to the next one. And so at this point is where we'll start to kind of give you guys an opportunity to chime in a little bit if you want to, because some of these experiences are different for everyone. So knowing normal, again, this is how would you normally react in a situation, and then paying attention when you don't. And so when your what you expect you to do doesn't match up with what you do. So knowing what's normal for you. Oh, that girl, those teeth. Oh, she's never gonna live that down. So I just have some situations here on the left that these are things we all go through. Hopefully not every day, but they're things that we go through that you can pretty much anticipate what your response is going to be. And it's not going to be the same for everybody. So I tried to kill myself on my 18th birthday. So since then, birthdays haven't really been a thing for me. I have a very different experience with my birthday, and some people are like, woo, it's my birthday! And they want everyone out, and they want to have this big thing, and I'm like, I'd rather not remember that. I'm going to drink coffee and read a book. And that's going to be nice. And so experiences change these things. Just who you are changes these things. So the first one's receiving criticism. I was an art student in my undergrad. I have a fine arts minor. Oh my gosh, the variety of ways that people receive criticism. It's hilarious. Yeah, I got threatened with an X-Acto knife once in an art critique in undergrad. Yeah, he got in trouble for that, but that's an extreme example. I'm going to assume he was going through some stuff at the time, because what I said wasn't that bad. I asked, do you really think that looks like what he described? Because I was calling his, okay, let me back up. When you're an art student and you have critique day, it's this combination of what I did I'm not really that proud of, combined with how can I BS and make this seem like I intended to do everything that I'm presenting. And so we play the game of who can call who on what. And I don't know. It was a weird thing. Small disappointments. So these would be things like, oh, you're out of vanilla for my latte? Okay, well, hazelnut's fine. Small disappointments, oh, I really wanted peanut M&Ms, but okay. Not big deals, but sometimes have you ever had that where, you want a cheeseburger, and they're like, well, we're out of cheese, and you're like, damn it, my whole day's ruined. And you're like, that's odd. It's just a slice of cheese. That probably is a hint that maybe something else is going on somewhere that you should probably pay attention to. Simple praises as well. It's the same thing. Generally, the reaction's kind of opposite of what you'd expect. So someone's like, "Hey, I really appreciate what you did on this," and then in your mind, you're like, "Oh, you smug little son of a," and it's just like they were just giving you a compliment. Like maybe there's something going on that you should pay attention to. The mini life milestones. I call these mini life milestones, and maybe it's because I tried to kill myself for my birthday once. But like a birthday's not really an accomplishment. It's really kind of the anti. Like you didn't die. Like congrats, you breathed a lot and you ate some food and bathed, hopefully fairly regularly. And congrats, we give you a new number. Things like anniversaries and stuff like that all kind of fall under my mini life milestones moment. Meeting a goal or deadline. We all have goals and deadlines. We meet them. They should be causes of celebration, and oftentimes they're not. That one for me, I don't know the last time I met a deadline or a goal, and it was like the heavens opened up and there were like angelic voices. It's always like, oh, thank God. I'm like, I'm gonna eat frozen pizza and play video games for the next 3 days, and my phone's gonna be off. So I'll be back though. Like, I just need some me. That tends to be what happens after I meet big goals. Meeting a new person, there's always weird stuff when you meet people. Getting invited out, normally this is exciting, but sometimes you're like, again, like knowing how you'd normally react in a situation and then just understanding that it's different. That can be a good sign that you're getting burnt out, you're starting to get burnt out. If you live with someone, this just gets amplified because you can't like hide in your house alone. So like I notice this with my wife a lot where her or I, we both do it. If you've like we make eggs most mornings and we'll take turns with whoever makes eggs and you get a little bit of shell like when you crack the egg in the thing. And most days you're like, oh, okay, you just like kind of get it out of the bowl. And other days it's like, damn it. Oh. And like you contemplate throwing like 4 eggs down the sink because you got like just the tiniest bit of shell in the thing. And like we have to talk each other down like, it's okay. It's just some shell. I'll get it this time. And that only ever happens when we're stressed out, we're getting burnt out, like there's something going on in life that we just are like, it has nothing to do with that egg. Like that egg is just like yeah. Relationships ending or beginning can also be, and then death and sickness also fit in there as well. Does anybody kind of like, is this making sense to people? Like, you've all experienced this, and I'm not insane for being up here being like, yeah, I cuss at eggs sometimes in the morning. Yeah, and then you think about it and you're like, this is so ridiculous. First off, the eggshell's not going to do anything different with me cussing at it. Second of all, like, no matter how frustrated I get, I have to do the same thing to get it out. I might as well just deal with it. Yeah. Okay, cool. Not alone. The next part is mismatched emotions. So there's more Kimmy Schmidt. Oh, I love that one. Okay, so this is when your emotions that you're experiencing don't match the emotions warranted by the situation. And again, this is still kind of tied in with that first one. Like you have to know yourself to know like what emotions you probably should be experiencing. So these could be things like you're relieved instead of being excited. So you get a promotion, and instead of being excited that you got a promotion, you're relieved that you got the promotion. This could be sad instead of happy. Where the emotions you're experiencing don't match. When my dad died, so he had ALS or Lou Gehrig's disease for about 2 years before he finally died. And it was a really weird thing for me because I was paying very close attention to how I was experiencing it. I have 2 brothers who live out of state. My parents are here. And so I saw him. We had dinner with my parents every week. So I was there through the whole process. But it's still like losing a parent is one of those. You get to do it twice, maybe 3 or 4 times, depending on what your parents did in their lives. But biologically, you get to do it twice. And it's just one of those like, okay, like what's going on? I know I'm going to be bummed out. I know I'm going to be sad. Am I more sad than I should be? And like, how am I experiencing giving the eulogy? How am I experiencing like some of these things? And obviously I have baggage with having attempted suicide. And so there's all this weird, like, oh, I'm at a funeral for like, and family is here. And like, how would this have looked if, but like processing through that and being like, is my experience here normal or not? Yeah. And so, are you kind of sad instead of grieved? That could also be something. So, like in the situation with my dad, with a person dying, or some situation where you should be really like devastated, and you're kind of like, like it could be a sign that emotionally you just don't have the energy to invest in experiencing those emotions properly, because you're burnt out or because you're going through kind of a depressed piece. And I just want to say, like, it's okay to have this stuff happen. Like, I'm not pointing these out as like, oh my gosh, you're broken. This happens to absolutely every single person that's ever lived and will ever live. Maybe when we become cyborgs, it'll disappear because we won't have brains or something. But until that point, like, this is just a part of life. This is part of being human. But what I'm trying to get at is, if we can be aware enough to understand that these things are happening, we can start to do little things in our lives to kind of cut down on that, on the overall impact. Does it make sense? You guys tracking with me? Nice. So coping. Ron Burgundy did it horribly. The word is thrown around a lot, but the key to coping well is to do things that help you be yourself. That's really, at the end of the day, what coping's all about. There's definitely situations that need time to process. You can't always rush it. Again, going back to when my dad passed away, you can't just like snap back the day after the funeral and be like, okay, well, that happened. Let's get back to it. Like, you just can't. We can't do that. So you need to be willing to give yourself time. I broke this coping down into kind of 3 categories that have been really helpful in my life, and I've had a good success with in communicating it this way. The first slide is actually going to be the top 3 things that you can do. I don't know why I picked that GIF. I added this slide this morning, and I didn't have adequate time to find an appropriate GIF for this slide. So I've picked an America's Next Top Model struggling on a runway because her shoes are outrageous. Yeah, I watch America's Next Top Model. What? It's difficult. So the first thing you can do, just as a general thing, is get enough sleep and sleep well. The sleeping well part is something I think a lot of people miss. But quality of sleep is also important. The next one is eat well and watch the sugars. In general, sugar messes you up. Just as a side note, God, sugar messes you up. And it makes it difficult for some reason, and I've noticed this with a number of people I've talked with. It can make managing emotions more difficult. And I think there's some reason we go to sugar oftentimes when we're feeling bummed out. And I would encourage you to try not to do that as much so that you can kind of like be present in what you're feeling. And then the last one is to spend time to unplug and unwind. These are pretty obvious things, especially for those of us in tech. It's really easy to never leave work. But going on to lists, and this is where we'll get some more engagement here. So lifestyle coping. So the idea here is these are things you can do almost every day that could help you. And granted, you have to know yourself. If you loathe reading, like Gaston here, that's probably not going to be something that's going to like help you be yourself. I love reading, and actually on the reading thing, I bought a Kindle because I've been reading on my tablet, but I realized what I was doing is the second I'd finished a chapter, it's got the little like time left in next chapter thing. And I'm like, man, I'm not awake enough to read another like 25 minutes worth of this book. I'll just see what's going on Reddit. And then like 2.5 hours later, I'm going to bed. And like, I don't remember what was so important, but like at the moment it was. And then you wake up exhausted and, well, not me, I run a company, I wake up at noon. But the average person who has to be to work by like 8:30, that would just suck. Sorry. So these are things that I try and do, some of them, not all of them. Listen to a record and sip bourbon. That's connected. There's something about bourbon that's magic. I don't know if it's the fact it's corn or the fact that it's just like angel tears or something, but it does something really magical. So I would encourage that. Yeah, thanks. Thanks, that's a good caveat. If you've got issues with any of these things, if like records cause you to become a psychotic mass murderer, don't listen to a record. Like, thanks. The next one is cook or bake something delicious. And you'll notice most of these things on this list force you to slow down, especially for those of us in tech. Oh my God, it's like how fast can you do things? And so for a lot of us, the slowing down part is the key. And so taking time to cook something, you know, go to the store, buy the things you need, come home, prep it, cook it, eat it, clean up. Like that's a couple hours of something that's enjoyable. It's tangible. For those of us that work in software in particular, most of what we do, we can never, ever see. My stuff's hosted in Oregon on AWS. I'm never going to see it. And even if I could, it'd be so disappointing. I've seen hard drives before. It's like, it's in there. Years of my life. And somehow what's in there makes me money. It's magic. You know, like, we aren't carpenters. We aren't, like, firefighters where it's like, that house is on fire. Now it's not. Done. You know, it's like, I committed some code today to GitHub. You can see it in my activity graph. You can print it out, put it on the fridge. 25 commits this week, but that was a big one. Took 2 days. Meditate or spiritually focus on something. I'm a pastor guy, so I like prayer, but it's all, from a psychological perspective, has a very similar impact on your well-being. Shave with a straight razor. This one's men only. You're more than willing to try. It just seems sketchy to do in a shower with a straight razor. Like, I've dropped it in the sink before, and that's horrifying. I can't imagine dropping it in a shower with soap and water everywhere. It just seems like a real bad accident waiting to happen. But again, like the whole point there is, I shaved with a cartridge this morning because I woke up late. But it's like, it takes me time. And so there's some ritual to it. There's time that's involved, and I'm spending time on myself doing something. And my facial hair comes in super horrible, so I have to shave it. Let yourself be inaccessible every day. This is something that's really hard for us to do in tech. I walk to and from work. It's 20 minutes. I don't care what happens in the world for those 20 minutes each way. I just don't care. I would recommend when you sleep that you turn off any noise your phone makes other than the alarm to get you up in the morning. Doesn't matter. Like, how many of you work for the Department of Defense? No? Yeah, so the world's probably going to be fine when you wake up. Like, there's nothing that they're like, Tim, get up. Like, Russia's doing something kind of weird, and we really need you at the office. Like, that's not going to happen in our lives. So just, like, shut it down. Sit and enjoy a drink. Generic drink, Carolyn. This could be like a coffee, a water, a nice lemonade. I hear sweet tea is nice, but again, I revert back to my, like, hey, watch the sugar thing. Have agenda-free time with friends. I've noticed as I get older that a lot of the times I get to hang out with friends, it's because they have something going on or I have something going on. And it's kind of a bummer. Like, I love seeing my friends, but it's like the random times where it's like, it's a Tuesday, let's hang out after work for no reason. Like, it's really nice. Limit email checking. Now, not all your professions are going to allow you to do this. I check my email like maybe twice a day. And when I check it, I go through, I respond to everything that I respond to, and then I quit mail. It's amazing. Um, I still do get notifications on my phone, but I haven't answered my phone since the beginning of the year. That's also been pretty amazing. People stop calling after about the first 2 months, and they just start emailing you, which again I prefer. Play some games, board or video. That's your preference. But again, the idea is you're slowing down, you're doing something for yourself. And the last one is sex or some form of it. Sex is pretty fantastic. Um, I understand that a lot of times the way we understand sex involves partners. It doesn't need to. There's a lot of things you can do yourself. That's fine. Um, and now I'm like crossing that line of like Minnesota, like, what? Yeah, this is the uncomfortable part. So there's a store in the North Loop called Sex World, and they have a lot of stuff in there. There's websites that can help with this. Just kidding. Oh, I'm not kidding. All those things are true, but like sex is actually a really great thing. I think we don't talk about it enough from like an emotional well-being standpoint. Um, Physiologically, what happens when you accomplish normally what you set out to accomplish with sex. Orgasms are fantastic. They release a significant amount of endorphins, and like there's great things that happen. And so having some sort of that be a part of some sort of regular lifestyle thing is actually a really healthy thing. Oh wait, okay. I meant to ask before we get to Aziz. After my awkward ending there, does anybody else have other things that they do on a regular basis where they're like, yeah, if I don't do this, XYZ, like it drives me nuts? He's got his hand up. He's doing Minnesota style. Okay. That's right. You get a Star Wars flip book. Laura.
Along the same lines with the decision fatigue, one of the decisions I made, and anyone who sees me regularly will probably think this is gross, dirty, but I'm following a 33 article of clothing rule, including shoes and everything. And so I just look at my closet and there's this many clothes and they're all the same color. And I mean, the ideal world for me is I would put on like a mechanic jumpsuit every day. But unfortunately, no, right? Um, Parts of my life don't allow for that. So things like that have helped me too, where I don't have to, like, I've had days where I don't want to get out of bed because there's so many things I have to do before I can leave.
Mm-hmm.
It's really like get dressed, be clean,
Yeah.
have coffee.
Okay, so just for the sake of the video, we have decision fatigue over here. So just kind of having a routine where it's like, this is just what I do in the morning. I don't have to think about it. Like, it's less for me to process. And then Laura had simplifying the wardrobe. It's eliminating choices. Again, I mentioned earlier, I literally have 4 shirts. I have some undershirts because it makes you have to do laundry less. I have 3 pairs of pants. This is an upgrade. I used to have 2. I have 2 pairs of shoes. I don't wear shorts, and so that takes care of that. And it's just like, I make sure all my clothes kind of go with all my clothes, and then I just grab stuff that's clean and throw it on. And I have 1 vest, and people are like, Paul's the guy with all the vests. I'm like, vest, it's singular. So it's
I found that actually, these are all a lot of comfort things. I've actually taken an opposite approach and done
okay.
something uncomfortable every day, or tried to at least every day.
What's an example of maybe 1 or 2 things that you've tried to do?
Well, I mean, a big thing is flying for me. And so,
Okay.
yeah, so I mean, that's something I always have to force myself to do, although I do it quite often now. But it's allowed me to cope, and I have situational depression, but
Okay.
high anxiety.
Okay.
And so it's a little bit different.
Yeah, it is a little bit different.
Yeah, but relaxing is also helpful for anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
But also confronting the things that cause the most anxiety
Yeah.
and stress in my life
Yeah,
has been super important.
Absolutely. And so what Dana said was, you can also just kind of the opposite of this. Like you mentioned that these are very comfortable things, but you can also kind of step out of your comfort zone, and those things can be really rewarding. And that's a really good point. There's a certain like enrichment thing that happens if you eat a new food or you discover something new about yourself or do something you didn't know you could do. Like that, there's an ego boost to that, and it feels good if it's overcoming fear, if it's whatever. You get the last Star Wars flip book. Nice.
A thing that I did this year in order to help with this stuff is I decided to ride my bike all winter. So that was my project, my ego boost. That every day is like, oh, now it's 20 below zero, and I have to ride my bike 2 miles
Yeah.
to the train, and then I'm going to freeze waiting for the train. And I had to figure all of that stuff out.
Yeah.
That was something where when I actually got to work, even though I'd only like 3 miles or so, it was a huge deal.
That's cool. So biking to work, again, it's kind of a routine change, but like all the challenges with winter biking and all that too. Nice, nice. And then I saw a hand in the back. Yeah. Way in the back. That's great. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, so yeah, you're you're doubling up. And so he mentioned going like sitting on the floor, playing with his kids. I don't have kids, which is probably why that didn't make my list. I also don't exercise, even though I put that on there. You notice I skipped over it when I did it. I walk a lot, so that's probably where I get my exercise. But
I want to be respectful of the time, but
Yep.
I just wanted to add that I don't work in the tech world. I work around a lot of people who are in the tech world, and I witness a lot. But as someone who lives with depression, boundaries are really important to me,
mm-hmm.
and it's taken me a really long time to figure that out. But it's been like just being able to say no
Yeah.
is so empowering, and being respectful of your time the way that you're respectful of other people.
Absolutely. Boundaries are big. A lot of these things are, if you've noticed it, they're kind of saying no to other things to do that. And I would love to keep going, but I've only got like 3 minutes and I've got some slides left. So we got Aziz. This one I'm just going to kind of run through, but this is a coping technique that often gets overlooked, but it's thinking rightly about whatever. So I run a startup. It's on the internet. You'd think uptime's something that is very important, and it is important, but it's not actually that important. I'm not med tech. I'm not banking. I'm not DoD. If my software is down for a day or two, we'll be fine. Like, people aren't going to die. The world's not going to go to war. Like, it's actually going to be okay. And it's really difficult to kind of step back and kind of look at the things that are causing you anxiety and be like, is that really necessary to do that? And then how accessible do you need to be? My last name's not Obama or Merkel. Like, I'm not that important. And the reality is, for them, they actually have people that they have like 3 or 4 people who it's their job to be the person that if something important comes up, they go get them. I don't have people. Like, I have a cat, and he's a little shit sometimes, but like, that's just because he's hungry, not because anything really important's happening. And so this idea here is to kind of align what's important with kind of what you think is important. And so kind of that, like, bringing that into alignment. And the amount of anxiety I lost and like stress and fatigue by realizing that like my software could go down for a couple days and it would be fine. Like, yeah, I'd have to do some like, I'd have to talk to my customers and like there'd be fires I'd have to put out, but like we'd be fine. Like, I do software for nonprofits. Like, they'll be fine. They'll still be nonprofits when it's over. And then at the end, there's coping power moves. So these are things that I like to do. These are the go-tos when the lifestyle stuff isn't cutting it or when shit really hits the fan. Go to your happy place. Mine was the ski slope. When I was depressed and suicidal in high school, I could get on the ski slope and it just disappeared. Like, until I left the ski slope and then it all came back. But it was just nice having those like little moments of oasis. And I think if you have been fortunate enough to find something like that, it can be great to have time to go do that, to kind of get a break from the worst of it. Short vacations can be great, as long as like the cash part isn't what's causing your anxiety or your depression or your burnout. I don't recommend like adding to it, but it can be great just to take a couple days away. It could be going to Red Wing. It could go to Duluth, Chicago. Like you don't have to go, to a beach in the Caribbean. You can go somewhere nearby. Do culture. Minneapolis is amazing for this. We have awesome theaters. That thing, Otto Pierce's Electric Flowers at the Walker, it's gorgeous. I spent way too much time staring at it last time I was there. And so, like, go do something. Go to a museum. They're cheap. They're fun. You can just wander, enjoy, like, slow down, relax. Do sport. Hit the lakes, slopes, court, whatever sporty thing you like to do. And then do arts. So there's actually a study recently that correlated drawing and coloring with better emotional states. So grab a coloring book and some crayons, hit it up. Or painting, printmaking, whatever that is. I've done printmaking, I know what it is. So we're just over time, so I'm gonna quickly review here. 2 key tools: awareness, try to know your normal, pay attention to when you don't match up with that, and pay attention when your emotions don't match the situation. And then coping, try and work certain things into your lifestyle that allow you to be a little bit more consistent. There's a lot of great advice in here today, which was awesome. Thinking rightly, don't worry about stuff that's not worth worrying about. There's enough stuff that's actually worth your attention. There's no point in adding to that. And then the last thing is those power moves. Try and know yourself well enough that like if you really need to unplug and like recharge, that you know what you can go do. And again, that's gonna be different for each person, but sometimes for me it's just even playing a video game for a day and just not getting out of my pajamas and drinking beer and eating pizza and switching over to bourbon when the sun sets, because somehow in my mind that's romantic. So me and Civ 5. So that's Burnout and Depression, and thanks for coming. So if you have questions or whatever, you can come hang out, but thanks for coming.